Trustee Andrade Zuniga, is she present or not present? Okay, because we're going to have her virtually, but that's not happening. Okay. And then Trustee Griffin?
Present.
And Trustee Land, I'm here. All right. So our
President Land and your student board member.
I was just, yeah, that was the next thing I was going to say. Our school student board representatives for tonight are Kaya Jimenez from San Mateo High School.
Present.
All right. And Corinne, is it Corinne?
Corinne.
Corinne Suherman?
Suherman, yes.
Suherman
Present.
from Burlingame High School.
Present.
All right. Thank you. All right. Tonight we have a team from Hannah Interpreting as our Spanish interpreters. For those who would like to attend the meeting virtually in Spanish, that option is available. Hannah Interpreting, would you please communicate for that for us this evening?
Absolutely. Thank you, President Land. In order to provide language access, this meeting will have simultaneous bidirectional interpretation into Spanish and American Sign Language. If you're bilingual, you don't have to click anything. But if you're not bilingual and you're using your laptop, locate the icon shaped like a globe at the bottom of your screen, click on Language Interpretation, and then select English. If you're using your phone or an iPad, then locate the three-dot menu in one of the corners of your device. Click on Language Interpretation and then select English. When you speak, do so at a moderate pace because the interpreters are going to be simultaneously interpreting everything you say. A efecto de proporcionar acceso lingüístico, esta reunión contará con interpretación al español. Si usted es bilingüe, no tiene que presionar nada, pero si usted no es bilingüe y está en su computadora, en unos segundos verá un icono en forma de globo en la parte inferior de su pantalla. Haga clic en Interpretación y después seleccione Español o Spanish. Si está en su iPad o su teléfono, entonces busca el menú de 3 puntos o que dice More en una de las esquinas de su pantalla. Haga clic en Interpretación de idiomas y después seleccione Español o Spanish. Cuando hable, hágalo en español y las intérpretes estarán simultáneamente interpretando todo lo que usted diga. Gracias. Thank you.
Gracias también. Okay, if you wish to view closed captions of this meeting, please view the meeting on the San Mateo Union High School District Board Meeting YouTube channel. The link for the YouTube channel can be found on our website. You may view the captions in English as we stream live to our meeting tonight, and you may view the captions in a variety of other languages if you choose to watch this after the meeting has ended. Viewers may request additional accommodations by calling 650-558-2201. For our deaf and hard of hearing community, we have a team from Hannah Interpreting Services. They will be interpreting our meeting this evening. We would like to ask that everyone speak clear and at a reasonable pace for our interpreters. Thank you. So let's get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. Superintendent Booker, would you like to start us off?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Report of actions taken in closed session. In closed session, the board, upon motion of Trustee Griffin and seconded by Trustee Chavid, moved to approve 2 special education settlements with a vote of 4-0. Trustee Andrade Zuniga absent. Public comments. If you are joining us in person and wish to make a public comment about an agenda item during public comment section or during the public comment section at the beginning of the meeting, please fill out a request to address the board form and submit it to the secretary. This form should be given to the secretary before the agenda item begins. If you are joining us virtually, use the raised hand feature on Zoom to be recognized. When invited to do so by the board president for each item on which you wish to comment, you'll be admitted to speak as a panelist during the public comment period. The board president will call on you. Please note that comments are limited to 3 minutes. The board president may increase or decrease the time allotted for public comment depending upon the topic and the number of persons wishing to be heard. We're going to move into governing board comments next. So is there anyone who'd like to say something during this time? Oh, is there any public comments?
No, President Land, there's none.
I was just psychic, that's all. All right, go ahead.
And none online, I assume. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm just excited about everything going on in the district right now. So I'm going to share a few things. I attended the Cappuccino School Site Council meeting last week on the 18th. I'm so excited about that group this year. There are 3 new parent volunteers for the school site council. So that's exciting. And there's always room for more parents, and it's an open meeting. So anybody interested in going to any of the school site council meetings that occur in all of our school sites, you're more than welcome to attend. And all of our school sites have student reps, student participation, student leadership. It's amazing. And then on that same day, we actually had the San Mateo County School Board Association board meeting here in this room, led by President Land. So that was great as well. Great job.
Thank you.
A couple more things. Let's see. We had our wonderful Equity Advisory Committee meeting on the 21st last week, led by Dr. Kemke. That was great. A lot of parent participation, a lot of participation from the district as well. And other districts also participate in that. Let's see, a couple more things. So much exciting, good news. Well, I'm not gonna steal the thunder, but I'm just gonna mention, because I hope that Superintendent Booker mentions this. We had our amazing partner breakfast that was here earlier this week with our partner districts, as well as our partner city council, mayors, school board members, and also superintendents from other districts. Our partner breakfast, and President Land spoke, and so did Superintendent Booker, and it was just an amazing time. And of course, the theme is intersections and interdependability. And I won't say too much more. I'm hoping that others here will speak about that as well. But I was really happy to have been able to attend that. And last night, I attended the COC bond meeting regarding just a great group. That's Yancey's meeting right there. So Yancey and Mr. Yancey Hawkins and Mr. Jose Quintana did an amazing job. And we have such a great group. We would say there were six or seven members there, right? From pretty much the whole members, 6. Okay. And then we review spreadsheets, and that group asks us a lot of questions. So we have spreadsheets for each individual project at all school sites for Measure O and also Measure L. And we receive project updates, slides. We also did the tour last month, but I think I already spoke about that. I think I'm taking kind of Trustee Andrea Zuniga's space because she's not here. So that, one more thing. I'm good at that, right? One more thing. The speaker series. So we've had two of the speakers, 2 of the Fridays out of the 4. We have 2 left. But the Friday that I attended the first 2 speaker series, we already spoke about the first one. So the one that occurred on Friday, September 22nd was amazing. Dr. Richard Carranza and Ms. Sarah Espinoza Salamanca. They are both amazing. Dr. Richard Carranza was the superintendent of different school districts, including San Francisco Unified School District, and also New York tapped him to help out over there. He told his story. It's just really amazing and uplifting, and also Miss Sarah E. Salamanca. She expressed her story. She had graduated, was getting ready to graduate high school, great GPA above a 4.0, and she found out that she couldn't apply for FAFSA, and she told her whole story because she didn't have a social security number, and so she told her story about the battles, and she created an app to help students that are in that same situation. And so very amazing stories, and we have 2 more speaker series coming up. Right, so I'll stop there. So thank you for allowing me to share.
Thank
If you
you.
want to share more about those speaker series.
I was just about to.
Yeah, okay.
But thank you very much. All right, moving on, and please tell Simon Mazzola hi on your committee for me.
I know.
Give
he
him the
wants-
same response that he gave to
Oh,
me. Keep it
really?
back. Yes. Okay. All right. Any other speakers? All right. Trustee Griffin.
I did attend the CCS Board of Managers meeting, and there was actually a pretty good topic there. And I think everybody knows that flag football has been introduced for girls.
Yes.
And what a big, well, thank you for helping me in my comments. I appreciate that. And there was an article in the paper about what a big deal and how it's been accepted. And actually they had a report that I guess that is throughout the everywhere it's been introduced, it's been warmly received and enthusiastic. It's just everybody's having a lot of fun. And I wanted to discuss when that was voted on, that there was actually some concerns. And one of the things when you implement new sports is the impact it'll have on the other sports. And so they were worried about, people who were playing another sport, leaving that sport and actually impacting the quality of the competition. And it was surprising that I guess most of the people, if not all the people who were playing flag football are new to athletic competition. And it really, and that's one of the goals, is to broaden, people's participation. And so that's even a double big hit. So, yeah. So, yeah,
All right.
it's good to
Thank you.
hear. That's it.
All right. Trustee Jacobson, anything or
Yeah, sure. Oh, I don't know.
we're having technical difficulties? Sorry.
That's okay. I just wanted to say one quick word. I've been following the bill AB 1078, which authorizes complaints regarding governing board actions related to textbooks and other materials be filed directly with the state. I don't think it's very often that the state has a bill that directly targets school boards. So I thought that was interesting that passed, and Governor Newsom recently signed it. And I just want to reiterate that the California School Board Association advocated against this bill, and that I think that local school boards are in the best position to make decisions for their communities.
Touche. I totally agree. All right. Just a couple things from my perspective. I do want to say that, sorry, I'm trying to get the, okay, here we go. So yes, on Wednesday, I was part of the partner district. I really want to give kudos to Superintendent Booker for the direction in which we started this. I think it was very important. I think it's a great dialogue that we've started. I think it was just being part of a partner district. I see the value in how we can have that intersectionality and the interdependence and working together. I think we need to do more of that. And this was a great start. It was great to see all the electeds in the room, to see the mayors and the superintendents and the school board people and the presidents. It was great to see, and there was a lot of good energy and conversation that started, and I hope that we can bring that forward. As I said in my own word in my speech, that the thing against us is time, and trying to find the time to get together and connect is really going to be important. And that's the one thing we got to try to find in all our districts and in the cities as well. The next Latino Leaders Coalition of the Bay Area Speaker Series is going to have Dr. Curtis Acosta and Jose Medina, a former California State Assembly member. Those speakers will be on Friday, October 6th. And it's in a different location. It's going to be at Carrington Hall in Sequoia High School in Redwood City. So if you're interested, they're going to have that's on Friday, October 6th. That's our next one. So without further ado, I'm opening it up to our student members. If you guys have something to say or want to contribute today, there is another part where you do report again. So either way, it's up to you, but I want to treat you like board members. And this is when our board member people talk. So this is an opportunity for you to speak whatever you have on your mind.
So at our last meeting, we met last week, we discussed a few more, we kind of like to run the meetings where we discuss grows and glows. And so one of the topics that came up on a grow that our students identified in the district was the lack of resources and support for international students, or maybe just even students who can't speak English well at a few school sites. So students can still help themselves for take-home assignments by using apps such as Google Translate, where they can take pictures of the assignments and use it to translate to English. But that by doing that, they are taking double, sometimes even triple the time to complete their homework assignments compared to their peers. But for tests and exams, these students are really limited to just what they have on paper, and they have to read those tests and exams in English, and they struggle to understand and comprehend the questions, which affects their overall grades and how well they are doing at school. So there are existing resources at the district, such as Bridge or the ELD program, which is the English Language Development program. But as far as our student board members know, those programs, the ELD program is only available at Mills and Cappuccino. So I guess a change that we wanted to see was that we should really be allowing students, international students, they should be able to choose the school site that they want to attend while still having the available resources.
Thank you for sharing that.
I just wanted to add, while it is definitely ELD, I want to say that it's kind of more focused to, I guess, people who speak Spanish. Because I have had some friends who they can speak kind of broken English, but they mainly speak like other languages like Chinese, like Mandarin. And I know some people who speak just Tagalog, and that ELD support really, at least at San Mateo, only kind of goes so far in terms of like, I feel like people who speak Spanish, there's definitely ELD support for them, but people who speak other languages, such as like Tagalog or Mandarin, definitely like they're very limited in terms of ELD support.
Thank you for both sharing that. Appreciate it. I will tell you to direct all those talks to Samia Showman, who's part of our district, and she can answer a lot of the questions. Also, there's different levels of ELD, like you're saying, and I think you pointed out very well, like sometimes they're not beginners, they're kind of in the middle, and then where do you put in, what does that look like? So what does that support look like? So very nice, very well done. Thank you. All right.
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
Yes, okay. I thought, and this is only an observation, and it's not against our student. I thought that we all were supposed to work through the superintendent to get guidance, and I think you just.
Yes, I apologize. Yes. I am not a really good board member that way. Sorry. I don't do that often. I'm a bad boy about that. Mr. Trustee Griffin is absolutely right. Talk to Superintendent Booker.
That's why I sit next to him.
Oh, okay. I was just having fun. Geez. No, it's passionate to me. So I understand what you're saying. All right. They could go to a DLAC meeting on their own though. But that's an extra meeting you guys would have to go to. All right, let's move on. So communications to the Board of Trustees, there is none. Now we're going to turn it over to Superintendent Booker for about the next few recognitions.
Thank you very much, President Land. So this evening, we are going to be reading and presenting and asking the board to take action on the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, and asexual history month proclamation. Tonight, we're like so awesome. We have with us from the Student Board Representatives Council, Bianca May Santos, who's a 10th grader from Mills. She contributed to the drafting of the LGBTQIA+ History Month proclamation for the month of October. And she's going to read the proclamation tonight, which outlines some of the history associated with this month and our district's support of the LGBTQIA+ community. So I'm going to turn it over to Bianca May Santos. Thanks, Bianca.
All right.
Before I begin, I want to thank members of the board, Mr. Booker, members of the cabinet, and the public for the opportunity to read this proclamation tonight. Whereas members of the San Mateo Union High School District support the rights, freedoms, and equality of those who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, and asexual. And whereas all students deserve to feel safe and welcome in their schools, to be known by their preferred name, gender identity, story, as well as to see themselves represented in the curricula. And whereas the California legislature adopted AB 677, Chapter 744, 2017, encouraging schools to collect voluntary self-identification information on sexual orientation and gender identity and expression, SOGI. On April 8, 2003, the Federal Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled in a case brought by local Santa Clara County students, Flores versus Morgan Hill Unified School District, that school district staff were responsible for maintaining safe school environments and for equitable enforcement of non-discrimination statutes and policies. And whereas SOGI data and training promotes welcoming schools, improves understanding of LGBTQIA+ students, and supports educators to provide services in a non-discriminatory and respectful manner. Whereas a number of LGBTQIA+ historical events and people of all races have contributed to the history and equality for all people. And whereas LGBTQIA+ individuals have made and continue to make lasting contributions to strengthen the fabric of American society. Whereas October holds historical significance because in October 1979, the first LGBT National March on Washington occurred, marking the 10th anniversary of the Stonewall riots, and also in October 1988, the first National Coming Out Day was celebrated, and every year on October 11th, National Coming Out Day, and annual LGBT Awareness Day is observed. And whereas the month of October has been established to remind all cultures within our wider community of the important roles LGBTQIA+ people have taken in shaping the social, cultural, historical, legal, and political worlds we live in today. And whereas the San Mateo Union High School District appreciates and recognizes the importance of LGBTQIA+ history as an effective means of educating and calling to action the citizens to work together by fighting prejudice and discrimination in their own lives. And whereas increasing visibility, raising awareness, and teaching LGBTQIA+ history fosters a welcoming school climate where LGBTQIA+ students, families, and educators can live their authentic lives and be treated with dignity and respect. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the San Mateo Union High School District does hereby declare the month of October as LGBTQIA+ History Month in our schools. May this resolution serve as a call to action for educators, students, and community members to find tangible ways to understand and honor the LGBTQIA+ community during LGBTQIA+ History Month and all year long.
Thank you very much. That was excellent. Okay. A motion and a second, and then we'll get going.
That was well written and well said.
Yes.
And I'll make the motion to adopt the resolution.
Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second that. I want to say you did an amazing job reading that as well.
Absolutely. So motion made by Trustee Griffin, seconded by Trustee Chavez. Student school board members, how do you vote? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. The rest of us, how do we vote?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimously approving the proclamation. Thank you.
Okay.
I believe we have another one.
Tech. All right. Tonight, we're also going to be asking the board to take action on National Disability Employment Awareness Month proclamation. And we have Eli Politz, a transition specialist with our transition program, partnership program, who has a brief update for the board along with a video highlighting the program and our students. We're going to share the proclamation to recognize the month and honor our students. And then we're going to ask Bianca to read once again our National Disability Awareness Month proclamation. So first, I'm going to hand it over to Eli.
Thank you, Superintendent Booker. Good evening to the board, Superintendent Booker, and to our cabinet. My name is Eli Poblitz, and I am a transition specialist for our school district. I work with a dedicated team that consists of our district's vocational specialists, our transition assistants, and job coaches. Our team supports students with IEPs towards their employment and post-secondary training goals. We offer students workplace readiness training, post-secondary counseling, and at the heartbeat of our services, we offer work-based learning in our community with our business partners. Our work-based learning program is primarily funded by the Department of Rehabilitation, with additional funding that comes from the Golden Gate Regional Center and our newest partner, NovaWorks. I want to give a special shout out to the Department of Rehabilitation. They've been a long-standing district partner for the last 25 years. Last year for subsidized work-based learning for our students with IEPs, they paid over $130,000 in wages to over 100 of our students with IEPs. In the spirit of honoring October as National Disability Employment Awareness Month, we have a short video to showcase this past summer's Young Adult Employment Program, which was funded by the Department of Rehabilitation and NovaWorks. It was an interagency collaboration that we piloted, and it's actually being looked at the highest level of the state, because these are students who graduated with IEPs that did not have employment skills, but wanted them. And there was a program and a bridge for them with Life After High School with the summer program that we provided, which was, like I said, it was our district and two other agencies. With that being said, I have a short video to showcase the summer program. And I just want to give a big shout out to the staff member on my team, Matthew Park, who pretty much ran the program over the summer and also helped make the video that we're about to see. Thank you.
Mhm. Nicely done. I hate to ask this, but you guys also have a coffee cart. Can you talk about that? Because our breakfast, okay. Could you tell us?
Keisha's
could
about to
tell the
wow
rest of-
us with her tree number.
Oops. That's not it. But could you tell us a little bit about it? Because I thought it was amazing. We had some amazing baristas at our breakfast for the local area, and you guys had people there.
Yeah, with support of the district and Mr. Booker, also with support from the Department of Rehabilitation, we're once again, we're combining resources to have an enterprise where there can be transferable skills and ownership. To have students understand what marketing is and to where, the business that they're developing and building. And also makes us a little bit, it protects us too, because a lot of times when we go into workplaces in the community, sometimes there's a new manager and that manager changes and we lose our work site or things happen at the highest corporate level. So by having ownership of our school-based enterprises, we're the bosses of ourselves. And so it's a really holistic way for the students to learn. So in the future, the goal, the hope is to develop a coffee cart that's going to be at the Burlingame Community Center, the brand new, multi-million, very beautiful community center. And then also one here. So that's the 18-month plan.
Love that. Intersectionality.
Lots of it in our world. Intersectionality is massive because interagency, shared goals and working with our business partners. I mean, we live it.
Thank you. You had to share because it was so important.
It
It was
was-
so great to see them there.
I wanted to give a quick shout out. It was amazing. I mean, everybody at the table that I was sitting at on, was it Tuesday morning? Yeah,
Wednesday.
Wednesday?
Wednesday.
Tuesday, I think Tuesday morning.
Tuesday.
Everybody at my table either ordered coffee or tea. So pleasant. It was just amazing. So
Well, I'm glad to hear about
Yeah.
the response. It warms my heart, and I look forward to
Yeah.
to the future.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Are we having a proclamation? All right.
Yeah. So Bianca May Santos is going to come up and read again for us. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Once again, thank you for the opportunity to read this proclamation. Whereas the month of October was designated as National Disability Employment Awareness Month by the United States Congress in 1988, and whereas it is important to pay tribute to the accomplishments of the people with disabilities whose work helps keep the nation's economy strong by reaffirming their commitment to ensure equal opportunity for all citizens and promote an inclusive workforce. And whereas people with disabilities have the education, training, experience, and desire to be successful in the workplace. And whereas this year's theme is advancing access and equity, with the use of hashtag NDEAM and hashtag RehabAct50 intended to encourage individuals and groups to post images and begin discussions on social media about the many ways inclusion works. And whereas the American Association of People with Disabilities has expanded a Disability Mentoring Day program from a one-day event to a year-round initiative across the country as a nationwide effort to promote career development for students with disabilities through hands-on career exploration. And whereas in 2022, 21.3% of people with disability were employed, compared to 65.4% for individuals without a disability. And whereas the governing board of the district, through Board Policy 4030, prohibits discrimination in employment on the basis of physical or mental disability. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the San Mateo Union High School District Board of Trustees hereby recognizes National Disability Employment Awareness Month, October 1st to 31st, 2023. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Again, great job. All right, entertaining a motion.
So move.
Okay, motion made by trustee Griffin for the proclamation. Second.
Second.
All right, seconded by trustee Jacobson. We're going to start with the vote of the student board members. How do you vote?
Aye.
And the rest of the board, how do we vote? Aye. Unanimously passed the proclamation. Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda. Anybody want to pull anything or make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve.
Okay, motion
I'll
made.
Second that.
Motion made by trustee Jacobson, seconded by trustee Chavez. Student board members, you actually get to vote on this as well. This is the consent agenda. How do you vote?
Aye.
The rest of the board, how do you vote?
Aye.
Any nays? Hearing none, voted unanimously for consent agenda. Moving on to the next item, regular reports. Report of the superintendent, Superintendent Booker.
Thank you very much, President Land. So a couple of things. First, I want to speak to our student board reps and our community. We have ELD programs at all of our schools. So that's really important that I communicate that. They're really strong programs, but this is a great example of why we have a student board council. So one of my suggestions is, and I'll speak to Mr. Huddleston about this, it would be amazing to have Joanna Fight, who runs our ELD across our district, to push in maybe at the next student board council meeting to talk about, because I'm not going to spend the time here tonight, but what ELD is, how a student qualifies, what are some of the components of the programs, because it's a massive program across our district, and it's a program that we are putting a tremendous amount of updated resources into to really disrupt a lot of the learning issues that we're finding across the district, as you both discussed, right? The international students and students where English isn't their first language, we're seeing struggles there, and we're trying to do a lot of work and put a lot of resources into supporting our ELD students. So I think it would be great to have Joanna come and give some updating to the student board council and answer questions and get feedback too. And I think that'd be great feedback for her because she just started this year in this role. So I really appreciate you bringing this topic up because it's a huge focus of the boards and of us as district staff too. So thank you for bringing that up. It was really great. Okay. So thanks for the kudos around the partner breakfast. We had a great time. So for those of you who don't know, we held a partner breakfast earlier this week. And what we mean by partner is that we invited every board president and vice president, every mayor, every city administrator, and superintendent from our partner districts: San Bruno Park, Millbrae, Burlingame, Hillsborough, San Mateo, Foster City, and the county office. And people came in force. It was great. We also had my cabinet in attendance as well. We sat, we broke bread together. We talked a lot about, from our district's point of view, what does intersections and interdependability really mean? What are we trying to achieve collectively? And really coming back to that mantra that, our what is that every single student graduates and every single student thrives. And we need to do that as a team. And so I encouraged our partner districts and all the elected officials to come back together under a Let's Talk campaign, where we'll meet again, most likely in January and then in April, to come back together and to continue and expand the group and bring in some community members, some city staff members, and also students to join the conversation, to talk a lot around what do our students in our various communities need, and how are we going to come together to address those needs, and to inspire one another. I was so inspired by the mayor of San Bruno when he spoke at the partner breakfast. He challenged his colleagues to get into our school sites and to visit classrooms and be present. And he did it with some fervor. I really appreciated, his comments, his testimony.
I loved it.
And President Land, the beginning of your talk and talking about how we need to come together and how time is the enemy. And I think we just need to make time. It needs to become our priority. And one of the things I talked about is, do we have the will? You make the time when you have the will. If you don't have the will, you come up with every excuse in the book. And so I think part of what the mayor from San Bruno was doing was really imposing his will, like get into classrooms, get to your school sites, all those things. So I really appreciated it. I had a great time. Our team did a great job of putting it on. And I'm looking forward to another time we can come together in January. So that was our partner breakfast. Next on our list here is we've got the walk, bike, roll to school day. It's October 4th, and our educators and students, we're really encouraging them to walk, bike, or roll to school. Be safe, wear a helmet, all those kinds of things. But we offer as a district an eco-commute incentive for educators here. We've been doing this for a while, who seek alternate modes of transportation to work that soften our footprint on the environment. The incentive is $200 for commuting to work at least 25 times in the year in a way other than commuting alone in a car. And thanks to all of our members of our school community and district community, including our students and families that make these healthy choices and want to do their part to improve the environment. So I really, really appreciate that. Lastly, we've got our Burlingame High School Centennial coming up. It's long awaited, 100 years, October 13th and 14th. Their Burlingame High Alumni Association has just taken off with this. If you go to Burlingame Ave, you're going to see the banner across Burlingame Ave, and a lot of advertisement is going to ramp up. We, Burlingame High School and the Alumni Association, invite community members to celebrate the school's centennial, again, October 13th and 14th at the school and in the community. October 13th events include, and again, these are hosted by the Alumni Association, a golf tournament, Lorton Ave Avenue block party, and you can learn more on their website. And don't miss seeing the Panthers under the Friday Night Lights at home against Wilcox Chargers, October 13th. As a reminder, you need to buy tickets in advance. There are no gate sales. It's anticipated to be sold out. There's going to be a lot of community just kind of swarming on Burlingame High School. Kickoff for JV is 4 p.m. Varsity is 7 p.m. On October 14th, the next day on Saturday, we're going to join friends old and new at an alumni celebration at the school at 10 a.m. on October 14th. On a personal note, my mom's super excited. She graduated from Burlingame High. She instructed me I'm not allowed to say the year, but she did graduate from Burlingame High, and she and I will be there together. But events include an opening ceremony with dignitaries, a classic car show on Mangini Way, photo opportunities for alumni groups, student-led tours on campus from 11:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. The event is free and open to the public. The fun continues in Washington Park, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. with music, games, food, drinks, all that kind of stuff. It's going to be great. And we're going to wrap up the day with a celebration of 100 years of excellence in downtown Burlingame on Burlingame and Broadway Avenues starting at 5 p.m. You can learn more at the Burlingame High Alumni Association website. That's BHS100, the number 100.com. So really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be great. And it's going to be a thing that brings the community together. So there we go.
Thank you. Looking forward to it. It's right in my backyard. Literally. All right. Yeah, you could park in my house. Next, we have the formal reports of the student board representatives, if you have formal reports.
So earlier we did talk about some of the grows, but we also wanted to talk about some of the glows because not everything is bad.
Point well taken.
I mean, generally across the district, I mean, school is going. The first 6-week grading period ended last week. And just students throughout the district, they're kind of finding their place in their schools. Like club fairs have started. Students are getting active in their leadership, like Student Equity Council. I know there was a meeting like last week, I think.
Yep.
ASB, Associated Student Body, just like all of these different leaderships and leadership positions, club positions, and just students getting to know one another. Because just after, I guess, summer. Yeah. Just some general like glows. I mean, Friday night lights, football games started. It's so fun. Just kind of, in the student section and like, let's go school.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Next we have a report of the District Teachers Association representative, Craig Childress. Hey, Craig.
Hey, good evening, President Land, members of the board, district cabinet. As Rachel mentioned last time, we were voting on the tentative agreement, and hot off the presses, I received my paper copy of the new contract for the next 2 years. So I'm really pleased to say that the membership voted overwhelmingly, something in the neighborhood of 99% to approve the agreement. And as I've said before, we don't always agree on everything at the table, but I do want to recognize the level of professionalism and the work that both teams did to secure what I think is a very good agreement and represents collaboration that is not often the same in other districts. So I really do appreciate that. The second thing I'll say is we're very excited. We are currently engaged in an internal study with the help of the National Education Association to sort of create an objective study of what our members think is most important in the district, what our members find most challenging in the district. And we chose to participate in this study primarily because we want to remove any bias that anybody would have with just our own members, our own leaders asking. Well, I shouldn't say that's the only reason we chose to do this. We chose to add another level of objectivity that I think is going to be very powerful and supportive in developing a plan and positions going forward. So we're really kind of excited about that, and that's happening in the next week or two. And then finally, along the lines of collaboration and professionalism, I do want to recognize the work of the Joint Committee for Health Benefits. Over the last month or two, we've been discussing and sort of drilling down on issues that our members, but also all employees in the district have had. Excuse me, with Delta Dental and the effects on dental coverage for our employees. And I just, again, want to recognize the open-mindedness of both parties and the team to look at alternative solutions and really kind of drill down on what's important to our members and how we can do the best to support our employees and continue to provide an excellent place to work. So I do, again, want to just recognize that culture of collaboration continues, and I really appreciate that. And other than that, yeah, as the student board members mentioned, the 6-week grading period just ended, and I think all of us are sort of breathing a sigh of relief as we scrambled to make sure that students got all their work put in and made sure that they earn the credit that they deserve, and that the report cards are accurate. And it's always a pleasure to participate in the exercise of assessment, but sometimes it can be a little bit stressful and trying. So we're headed to October, and so that's all I have for you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, we have the report of CSCA Chapter 519 Representative Robin Clements. Robin, good to see you.
Good evening, everyone, and student representatives. Loved having your input. It's great to hear what's going on with the schools from your perspective, because that's all part of the big picture. I actually am the president of the CSCA, which is the union group for the classified staff, who are the custodians and operators of all the equipment at schools. The admin staff are classified, everybody, the IAs, bus drivers, everyone knows what it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're everywhere, and just sort of everything we do helps keep the school together. So it's nice for everyone to come to teach at and to be a student. So actually I planned this to be a report and run, to be very excited. We've had some very wonderful meetings, primarily because they were very short this week. Can you believe we had a problem solving meeting today that was 20 minutes? That was amazing. We had a meeting with Randall that was so informative today. Our survey goes out tomorrow. We'll have the results by Wednesday. Holla, we got this. And let's see, I've done stuff. So negotiations, we have an agreement, verbal agreement. We're going to get everything signed. Yahoo. So that's very exciting. I guess it follows on the coattails of what Craig was saying, because we've also been on those calls for the benefits. Youch. Talk about your phone calls. Those were not the pleasant meetings I was referring to. It's just a lot of information that you would prefer not to think about, but we have to. Part of that mature thing. I really like too, with all the expertise that we get in our meetings, that we have created a framework for moving forward so that we could stay on track and not have to drag a lot of these negotiations, problem solvings or out, and teaching people how to communicate better at our meetings, I think is really going to help that a lot. So that's been a good thing. We awarded 4 $500 scholarships to classified staff, and I'm hoping we can put the pictures in the Savvy source. That's not a violation of anything. I figured I would apologize after submitting it. So there'd be that. We have a full board right now again. Dale Brewer is going to be our first vice president, which is fabulous. He's been an electrician here for 1,000,000 years and has a great understanding of the union and the district by far more than most of us do. And our reclass actions have started, so that makes everybody happy. So thank you. Report and run. Good night, everybody.
Good night, Robin.
Enjoy.
Thank
Bye.
you. All right, moving on to the report of the San Mateo Adult School Teachers Association. Allison. Hi, Allison. Oh, you're unmuted, but we can't hear you. So not sure what that's going on. No. Sorry. It's something on your end. I know you had, did you unplug your earphones? Because then it might be the, yeah. Maybe mute and unmute. Oh dear.
Try checking which microphone you have selected in the microphone in the bottom left-hand corner.
Oh yeah, press the arrow up, see what it says.
Possibly with this audio.
There you go. We can hear you.
Okay. Good evening to
Lucy, good job.
Thank you. Good evening to the president, superintendent, members of the board, and all other attendees. I have a few reports from the adult school. The first from the career education program. It has continued to grow with the EKG technician being our newest addition. It is a 3.5-week program with a great foundation to enter the healthcare field. We also have the clinical medical assistant program. It's our most popular in the healthcare group of our courses that enters our 3rd week with full enrollment. With business and finance, we have introduction to accounting, QuickBooks, Google Basics, and Excel certification, showing how strong enrollment boosts our students as they up-level their skills. Our career education program offers students who are at the advanced levels of ESL, GED, and high school diploma programs a place to grow. And for the school in general, over the last 5 weeks, we have been busily administering over 1,000 CASAS tests to continuing students. CASAS is the Comprehensive Adult School Assessment System, and these tests are mandated by the California Department of Education. Students from across our programs, so the ESL core classes, ESL listening and speaking, GED or high school diploma courses, citizenship, and career education, they all have been assessed on reading and listening comprehension skills. After sufficient instructions, our students will be retested in November. We want to acknowledge our dedicated student volunteers who have helped us tremendously over this endeavor. They assist with various administrative tasks, translating, assisting students with the computer, and distributing reports. So that is a big shout out to them. Those are the points that I wanted to highlight and mention that we are leading into October with some success and hope for a wonderful remainder of the semester. Thank you for your time.
No, thank you. Okay. We're going to move on to special reports and appearances. I'm going to turn this over to Superintendent Booker.
Thank you very much. So this evening, we have our spotlight on student learning, our academic progress. We do this annually at about this time to talk about CASP and CAST and 10th graders on track, amongst some other data. So Brian's here to give an update for us, and then we'll have some discussion and answer questions as we go along. So Brian, thanks so much.
Good evening, Board President Land, trustees. I'm here tonight to share, as Superintendent Booker just said, a spotlight on student learning from this fall. It's the first of a few of these presentations. There's a summary on the memo of sort of the year-long process. For those of you who've been here a while, you know that this happens every year. The focus of tonight is on progress on students, on the superintendent, on really his prime directive to us, right? Which is every student graduates. And this is really the early indicator of whether or not students in the class of 2025 are on track. And then we're also going to look at some of the outcomes of the most recent state testing. I think if I have not used this before. Okay, yeah. So and it's really complicated because it has a green arrow to the right and a red arrow to the left. So, sorry. This slide is just an overview. And so I'm going to quickly move us ahead because now that I know how it works. We start by really just quickly reminding us all, we center the work ultimately on our vision for students in the district. We're going to be reviewing this data tonight. Gives us an opportunity to reflect on where we are in this journey on our vision. Secondly, our mission is how we've worked to really try to address these issues to make sure that all of our students, the second of Mr. Booker's priorities, thrive, right? And this is really situated around the third of our 4 LCAP goals. This area is really this idea of inclusive and relevant learning for all students. And if our students are on track for graduation and showing competency in the state CAST tests, this provides a piece of the story on how well we're making the learning relevant for students and ensuring that they feel included in the learning process, right? That's kind of the connection we're making to our goals. So these aren't just kind of arbitrary random data points we're sharing tonight. So just a quick reminder of, in case for those of you who are doing the math here, this is a really simple graphic that shows us what it means to be on track to 220 credits, right? So every student takes a class, it's 5 units, 5 plus 5 each year gives you 10 units in that particular subject, then you add them up to get to 220. And honestly, that's actually a piece of information that some families and students have to learn because you don't accumulate credits in the middle and elementary grades, right? You just pass. Or not pass, I guess, you just move on. And so it is sometimes, it's really important to make sure that people understand that there are these little tiny increments that gets you ultimately to your diploma. It's not sort of common knowledge necessarily. So this is a first kind of piece of longitudinal data. As you can see in this graph, we show our 3 largest racial subgroups. We have data about all our student subgroups, but we sort of target these particular subgroups because of their historically underserved nature. And this is how they've done over the last 5 years. As you can see, Latino and African-American student groups are above where they were before the pandemic, while Pacific Islander students lag their counterparts. And this year's cohort of 11th grade students showed a significantly higher percentage of on-track status over last year's group of 11th graders, our current seniors. Similar to the previous graph, we show here how our 3 special populations of students, that's our multilingual learners, our economically disadvantaged students, and our students with disabilities fared. As you can see, each of them is above where they were before the pandemic, and students with IEP saw a significant increase in the percentage of students on track. And that's really a good sign because they had been, as you can see, where their on-track status had been in years past. As this slide outlines, this is kind of the summary of sort of the takeaways. We have a number of areas where we need to improve. First, the differentials among the groups needs to narrow. We're concerned about the decrease by Latino students and erasing some of the gains that were in fact erasing some of the gains that you saw from last year. And also the declines, we also are concerned about the declines we see among SED, EL, and Pacific Islander students. As is always the question is, well, what are you doing about that? What I would say is this slide sort of summarizes all the various strategies that sites are undertaking to address these issues. But really the first is really to address the challenges we continue to face related to chronic absenteeism. When we look at who fails across courses across the board in the district, it's students who don't come to school consistently. What we see is that if a student attends regularly, they tend to pass even our most rigorous courses. The vast majority of our students who are credit deficient are chronically absent. We have a variety of outreach and engagement strategies to address these issues, from letters and phone calls home to social workers and home visits rather. It's a complex problem, and we are bringing lots of resources to bear to address it. Meanwhile, you can see the various other strategies that we are implementing, and I can address those in the question period if you have any about any of the specific strategies, because we've talked about those before in the past. The second set of data is related to the California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress. That is the CASP, as it's also called. It's also the Smarter Balance Test. There's lots of names for it, but it's really the test we administer once in high school, but also in grades 3 through 8 in the elementary districts. As you can see in this data for language arts, that we've administered the assessment a total of 5 times. In case you were keeping score, we've actually administered it 5 times total in the life of the assessment because of the pandemic. There's 2 years missing, right? 1920 and 2021 are not on that because we didn't administer the test. Despite the pandemic, all racial and ethnic groups are actually doing better than they were before the pandemic, right? So while there are some, declines in the data, among some specific groups, and depending upon the size of the cohort, there can be some serious kind of changes based on just the cohort size. But despite some regression, we can see some general, like the overall arc of the curves is going in the right direction. Meanwhile, this slide summarizes how our students did on the math assessment. This data is relatively flat over the entire run of this data, as you can see, right? It's almost remarkably flat. And that's actually true statewide. Just as a piece of context, about 32% of students statewide are meeting or exceeding the standards in math across grades 3 through 11. That's a sobering fact, right? A third of students in the state, less than a third of the students in the state are at or above the standard in math. And so I'll discuss some of the key takeaways from the data on this summary analysis slide after we take a quick look at the science test. And I chose to share this one by school only because it just didn't share any other data by school. So this is, and part of it is just to show how flat this data is as well. So this is the second administration of the California science test. And it's actually the third administration totally, but the first administration we did 4 years ago was actually just a pilot test for our then juniors and seniors. And so we've only actually administered this test 2 times in its lifespan because the first year it was to be administered for us was going to be in 2020, which that was March of 2020. So that didn't happen. And as you can see, really, there's no group no school had an increase or decrease by more than 2 percentage points, right, from year to year, from 2022 to 2023. This slide is a summary of the areas of need highlighted by the CASP and the CAST. First, we need to continue to promote the value of these assessments for all of our students. Math continues to see significant differentials across subgroups, and those differentials are getting worse. Finally, we're trying to make sense of how much of the CAST informs our work when it is taken. So it's literally taken in May of the senior year for seniors who have had basically every single decision that was contingent on their high school graduation is already decided by the time students take this test. So we're struggling with kind of making sure that students are taking it seriously, and then to be able to make some sense of whether the data is valid or not, right, based on student kind of motivation. Because we want to be able to use it to inform our programs. So these are the series of strategies we will continue to implement. I'd call it in particular the plan for this year to convene a math intervention task force to identify what the research says about effective math intervention in secondary schools and what we're doing or should we be doing to implement those best practices as a district. This is kind of in line with what we had done in literacy a couple of years ago. We did a similar sort of task force. Then I also want to call out the one surprise kind of across the board. You'll notice in the data, African-American students, and again, it's a small cohort of students. It's usually about 75 students district-wide. And so in a particular grade level, right, in the 11th grade, for example, there are no more than 15 students who are in that particular grade level, right? So just taking with a grain of salt that information, it's important to note that across almost every measure that we were looking at this year, African-American, our current juniors and current seniors did really well relative to how they'd been, their predecessors had been doing. And so, and we're digging into kind of what's going on there. I don't think it's just anomalous because it was across these kind of varied pieces of data. So the final thoughts are, I'm going to conclude by articulating something we said a little bit of last year at this time. Many of our students have overall done as well academically as their counterparts before the pandemic, in spite of the disruptions brought on by the pandemic. And while we continue to have much work to do to redress and close the gaps in performance still, the team-oriented approaches being implemented by our staff, coupled with persistence on the part of students and their resilience, and the data-driven progress checks that we're going to have to keep doing to make sure that students are on track in specific classes and that they're accumulating credits appropriately, will certainly continue to serve us well as this work continues. And with that, I will take questions.
Anyone want to start? I'll go.
Thank you, Brian, for your report. Thank you.
I'll take a turn. You want to go?
Yeah, I wanted to make sure I understood this correctly about the slide on the CAS math. I think you mentioned that less than a third of students in the state.
Statewide, yeah.
Statewide, yeah, less than a third of students in the state of California are meeting / exceeding the state standards. That means about approximately 2/3 are not meeting the state standards. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, I know, so this.
And you'll see that our
Yes.
subgroups are doing better, right?
Yes, right.
Even our lowest,
Right.
some of our lowest performing subgroups are doing better. But again, our resources are different than the state. Like, I think we need to take that into context.
Right.
So, yeah.
I was just kind of really surprised by that, but I'm wondering if it's because this whole group started with the Common Core math in elementary school. That's when they rolled out Common Core math, or I think probably the pandemic probably set everybody back a little bit, but I was just kind of surprised by that only 1/3 of students meeting / exceeding state standards. And statewide, not district-wide. We're doing a little bit better than that. Yeah.
Right.
I have more questions, but go ahead.
Go ahead. If you have it now, go ahead. No? Okay. I'll go. I never hesitate when it's this stuff.
We're wasting valuable
time. Let's do this.
Okay, so I did appreciate the report, and I did notice that and I thought it was a small sample size because you see, there that 75 students, as that cohort turns over, you can get some pretty outstanding students that come through there, and then they cycle through, and then you get back. The one thing that was kind of I wrote down after looking at the English language arts and math science, I said, well, flat is good, and I'm not so sure flat is good. At least I hope not.
But, no, that's not good.
Yeah, no, well, yeah. I mean, you look at the other outcomes, and that was sort of backhanded. Oh yeah, at least it's flat. The question I really have is on counselors, and and I'm kind of. It says on the slide that strategy is an annual one-on-one meeting with all students, and I'm kind of thinking a once a year meeting with a student is not much for a counselor, and that students should know their counselors and they should have relationships with them all the way through school. And, be able to talk to them about career choices, about what's going on and stuff. And is one time the goal? I mean,
that's the compulsory expectation, right? There are lots more meetings with certain students, right, based on need. Yeah. So there's a minimum, there's a floor of one meeting per student, right? So I think that's the key piece about the interaction between counselors and students. I mean, there's a lot of interaction, and again, depending upon the circumstance, depending upon the interventions needed, there can be more. Did you want to add anything, Dr. Kempke? I don't know. Oh, she's not. She's listening to something else. Sorry. I'm happy to keep answering questions.
Oh, no, well, that one,
If I could just jump in, trustee Griffin, I think you're right. I think our counselors should be pushing in. I like the idea of setting the floor at, every single student should have an opportunity to be connecting with their counselor. And at the same time, I want my counselors to spend their resource, which is time, on the students with the most need. So there are some students across our campuses that don't need more than one opportunity to connect or a couple of opportunities to connect, where I've got other students that need a tremendous amount of support and resources. And we want to make sure that we're spending those resources appropriately and getting the biggest bang for our buck on those resources. So I think on the surface, your point is well taken. One time doesn't really excite anyone. But if we came here and reported back out how many student contacts, if we call it, our counselors have, it's immense. And we can provide that
probably like
information.
960 or something.
I mean, it's immense.
Not quite that big. 960 to 1?
No, it's not.
No,
We have
not that
lower
big.
ratio than
Maybe
that.
it's 450.
But I'm not
It's lower
talking
than
about
that.
our ratio. I'm talking about how many times they're meeting with students.
Yeah.
And one student multiple times, all those kinds of things.
Well, the interesting thing, and if I had to say how many students and who are the students that meet one time or less than one time, are probably the students that are underperforming and need academic support and have not much interest in school or achievement. Whereas I'll bet you the people that are in there 5 or 6 times are looking for the deadlines for early admission and looking up to make sure that their GPA is accurate and looking up to make sure that every detail is already covered. I mean, I don't know that for a fact, but I mean, I'd like to think that we do encourage, the students that maybe just want to know what should I be doing or what kind of materials are out there that I can set some goals for, for a career.
And I have to say, we have a lot of different resources, right? So school counselors are one leg of the stool, but we've got college and career and financial aid advisors. We have career counselors at every campus who to do outreach to targeted groups of students for particular reasons. And then at Hillsdale, there's advisory. Like there's a lot of different strategies depending upon the school and sort of its assets. So there's definitely ways in which the schools they become very targeted about the support that they provide to individual students. And and there's even counseling. We now are offering also dual enrollment counseling classes at the 10th grade level, 10th and 11th grade level, because we know some kids need like intensive support, that a lot of what folks I think may think is common knowledge about college and career readiness is not common knowledge, and it requires a lot of training. It's not going to happen even in a one-on-one meeting. So we've actually got students in college counseling classes where they do interest inventories and they take trips to colleges and all those sorts of things to get themselves exposed and get purpose.
That would make an interesting spotlight on learning topic to present to the board.
Sure. Sounds good. We can do that.
You didn't even mention Avid, but I mean,
yeah, no, that's another one.
It's another one. Yeah. So I'm going to take a turn, but Bob, you bring up something really important, and I think it's about, and it connects with the chronic absenteeism. When you think about chronic absenteeism, you think disconnected. Yeah. And how do you connect? And whether it's the counselor, and like you said, there's lots of resources, lots of foots to the stool of how we can connect. But I think that to me is the most important thing or aspect of when we look at methods to recover, the chronic absenteeism. Where's the engagement? Where's the connectedness? How can we improve that with specifically those students that are in that list that you're talking about? Yeah. In the statistics, I just want to highlight a few things of concern. Sorry. But the first one was just to reiterate something that we were mentioning earlier with the students, representatives talking about our English learners. When we talk about 10th graders on track, they're the lowest. English learners are the lowest percentage, and it has actually gone down, not up. Yeah. And so, granted, I know we have programs, but maybe it's, time to investigate what those programs look like at the different levels. I mean, I think one of the points I would make when they were saying about students that are struggling at the high schools, well, what does the support look like? Maybe we need to adjust that. Maybe we need to adapt that. Because again, in those circumstances, we have a great bridge program. We have a great intensive program for newcomers, but what happens when they get to be at the LTEL level, when they're long-term English learners? And what's the support look like at that point? And I think that might be connected to a lot of this statistics.
I have to say, just quickly interrupt and say that the new revision to the academic language development class, I think is going to really try to get at that identity and engagement kind of question. It's called community literacy. We've changed the name, and we've also changed the content of the course. So I hope that has a piece to play with LTELs.
See, that's what I want to hear. That's good. That's what I think we're talking about. Did you want to say something?
Oh, I just had a comment on the CAS, the science test. The UC A through G requirement and this district requirement for graduation on science classes is 2 years to graduate with the district, and then the UC recommends 3. So I know many students who take the science test senior year, they've been out of science for 1 to 2 years, depending on if they take 2 to 3 years, especially because I'm someone who fills their schedule up, so I can't take 9 or 10 classes. If I could, I would. So it's for me, especially I've planned out my high school years. I'm not gonna be able to take science for my junior, senior year because I'm filling it with other classes. And so by the time many seniors get to their science test, it's April, May. And so some seniors are already kind of checked out. And so my question is, how do you like legitimize, I guess, the stats when you have, seniors who are checked out and ELD, and especially like people who haven't been there for 2 years and they're looking at all the science stuff and they're like, I don't remember any of this.
I think, I hate to step in, but you said something, Brian, earlier about how we were questioning the credibility of this because of exactly what you're saying, senioritis, certain engagements. The more you get into, statistically, just so you know, statistically, the higher the age, the more unreliable the scores based on that motivation alone that you were talking about earlier. So I think he has talked about it a little bit, but if you want to expound on it.
Well, so the tension here is that so just to understand the science test really quickly, you're supposed to take at the end of the 3-year course. So they're expecting that you've taken all, because we have a 2-year requirement as a district, but we really hope students all take 3 years, right? So we could administer the test at the end of that 3rd year or that last class you're taking. The problem is that runs headlong into all the other tests that most kids are taking the end of their junior year, right? So we would add another test to whatever AP fun and games is going on, in addition to the CASP. So we've made the choice. It's not the best. It's not the best option, but it's the option we've chosen to administer it at the 12th grade year. We might start to reconsider like what the benefit, the consequence of that. We would still have some seniors who would need to take it because they won't have taken their last science class until senior year. So yeah, it's not perfect. And honestly, the state's trying to do us a favor by having high school kids take a test just once, which is great. But the downside is that students only take all of these tests just once. Because as you may remember from elementary and middle school, you took the tests every year. So
anyway, good point. Thank you. That was it for me. The only thing I was going to say is just, again, I'm the data hound and I love it. The math, I was very impressed. Like you said, you highlighted Black and African-American scores going up in math tremendously. There's a green line that I think is Pacific Islander, but I'm not sure. Because
it got lost in the number got lost, and they actually did increase as well.
And it's interesting because that was a huge gain as well.
Yeah.
So
and it's a small
there is some
cohort as well.
highlights.
Yeah.
There are some highlights. The other one that I noticed, the jump, was IEPs.
Yeah.
Students with IEPs scores went up.
Yeah.
That's amazing too. Those are some statistics that I thought are very against the norm, and that was really good to see. On the flip side, the ELA, again, Latino and Pacific Islanders scores went down, and what's going on. So how do we use that data, at least in some small sense of what are we doing and how do we adjust? So that's it. But I do really appreciate, and once again, you do a fantastic job culminating this into a good report. So thanks, Brian. I really appreciate it.
Can I jump in with an additional comment? One of the important slides for us to look at is how some of this data is disaggregated by school. And what it does is it lends me to think and to work with our principals around, what do our schools need collectively and what do our schools need individually? If you remember last year as an example, and I know we're going to talk about this maybe a little bit during our study session on enrollment and staffing, which is going to be coming up, I think, next month. We talked last year about looking at, for example, Cappuccino High School and some of the unique needs that Principal Gomez has seen and staff has seen around class size, around targeted interventions, things like that. And so some of this data could lend itself, I think does lend itself, to promoting that thinking around looking at a school like Cappuccino, or maybe even specific programs or disciplines at Cappuccino and needing differentiated resources. And it's something we're going to continue to talk about. I think we're going to talk about it during our enrollment and staffing board workshop or board study session. And you know, talking with principals as the instructional leaders at their school sites around what is this data saying to them, coupled with the DNF list, coupled with the on track list, and where could they be targeting resources? Because the targeted resources that San Mateo could identify might be different, I think is different than maybe some of our, and I just use San Mateo as an example,
Right.
But some of our other school sites, and having those individual conversations and talking about how we might direct resources a little bit differently in a targeted way.
I just to complement that, you know, when you really talk about equity and you really talk about making change, putting our resources behind it is going to make the difference. And that's what we have to do. And up to this point, that hasn't really happened. We always want to say, hey, we'll just try something different. But if you don't put the resources behind it, like, again, class size, something as simple as maybe class size looks different at Cappuccino than it does at Mills, or it does look different than it does at Burlingame. Maybe because that needs to, and maybe because those are the things that can be changed in a different way. So I totally respect that, and I'm glad that that's what's happening.
Is it hard to bring back the slide? Just slide on the math. I don't know how hard it is to.
It's very hard.
Snap your fingers and it just appears. I know we have an amazing IT team in the back.
There we go. What slide?
The math.
The math CASP score.
Slide 12.
Slide 12.
Oh, I guess I could do it. Sorry.
Well, now that it's on, now you can do it.
That's right.
Allegedly.
Now it's lagging. There we go. This
That's the slide you were talking about?
That's the one. I don't know what to say. I think the slide, I mean, your presentation, outstanding. I'm a data person, just like President Land. And I'm glad we're talking about support and equity and what's working and looking at it. I'm glad Superintendent Booker mentioned looking at it by school site, putting more support where support's needed. But, you know, I'm looking at that blue row there. And I recognize some students at any given day can be great at taking a test. Some students can not be so great at taking a test. You know, so there's plus and minus a certain percentage of room for error here just because of test taking skills, right? I might not, you know, you might have, anyway, I don't want to belabor the concept of test taking, but when I see our Latino students going from 22% to 21% to 19% to 16%, I just think we need to, I think none of us can be happy about this slide, but I'm particularly solemn about this slide. But I think the next step would have to be putting some more support and finding out how we can help those students.
Trustee Chavez, just piggybacking on that, I think it's a good point. And I was just chatting over here with our student board reps. I think what might be helpful for all of us, the board in particular, is when do we deliver the CASP? Is that, what month is that? March, April? When
May.
May.
April, May.
April.
for us, but
April.
yeah.
Okay.
And which academic year? Sorry.
11th grade.
Okay.
So our two student board reps here, neither have taken the CASP yet as high school students. But I think it would be a fantastic opportunity for our student board council come April, May, to develop a report for us around what that experience was like for students to take that exam. Did they take it seriously? Did they blow it off? Did they try? Did they like, was it hard? What, regardless of the data is going to be with the data.
Anecdotal information of what
Anecdotal.
they've seen.
Right. And because this is why we have student reps on the board here, is to give
Absolutely.
us that kind of first person feedback. So I would love Mr. Huddleston to work with our student board council to develop anecdotal, I get it, but experiential feedback for the board on what they experienced in taking those tests.
I would like to add something. So I have not taken the CASP exam during high school, but I have taken it in elementary and middle school. And I think overall, well, the experience, I think most students would agree, because a lot of the students would discuss it with each other after taking it. We all understand that the purpose of the exam is for the district to collect data on how well we're doing. And I think because we're all aware of that, and it does not affect, say, like our GPA or whether we're going to get accepted to a certain college. I think a lot of students go into taking the exam without a lot of I guess they're not really eager to do well. Compared to like the SAT. And so this might be, I guess, this could be an issue which is affecting the data that we see here for a lot of the students that take it.
I think I hear you.
So on the flip side, do you think that would change if this district, and I am not advocating for this, by the way, just to be
Free
really
pizza?
clear. No, not free pizza.
How about
Posting
chocolate?
the CASP score on your transcript. And I'm not advocating for that. I want to be very clear. But if we did that, or if a school district out there did that, would behaviors change in test taking approach?
I would say as a student, if it's on a transcript, does that mean colleges would see it? Well, as a student, I would not prefer that, but I do have an alternative suggestion. You guys could potentially post the results publicly so students can see other students' scores.
That's
Yeah, we're not allowed to do
There-
that.
you're
but-
not
allowed to do that.
There is a lot of, I understand there's a lot of concern for that, but I think that's also an alternative way for the district to make it clear to students that the CAST results CAST test should be taken seriously.
Here's what, okay, so all joking aside, I'm not moving that. I'm not recommending that we put it on transcript.
Got it. Transcripts.
What I want to communicate to our students is that what we want to know from all this, we want to know, are you learning? That's what we want to know. And there are ways that we can determine that outside of a CASP score. We can look at multiple measures of assessment. We could look at common assessments. There are a lot of ways to address this issue outside of CASP. The old adage, and every educator has said this, and I'm sure as board members you've heard this, right? This is one data point in one point of time. And what we should really be looking at to address Ms. Chavez and all of our concerns, whether it's Latino students or anyone else, is let's look at some multiple measures to give us a real three-dimensional snapshot of how our students are learning and performing. And I think that's the work that maybe we need to shift to in our reports. We're looking at CASP because we're required to, but there are other ways to communicate how our students are performing other than a CASP exam. And I know our teachers do that. I know we look at multiple measures and all of those kinds of things. So at the heart of it, what we want to know is how well are you learning so that it better informs our instruction to help you learn better, right? That's the point of an assessment, pre-assessment, post-assessment, all of those kinds of things. So at the heart of it, it's not just whether it makes the district look good or not. I'm actually not as concerned about that. What I'm concerned about is how well are you learning and how can we better support you? And that's what sometimes this data can help provide.
But if we felt like, oh, excuse me.
Okay.
If we felt like perhaps students weren't taking this test seriously, then we still wouldn't see that disparity of 76% to 16%. It would be a little bit of disparity in all groups, right? Yeah.
Or it'd be lower than what we think we know it could be.
And I'm not throwing this particular test in the trash. I'm not saying it's invalid or any of those kinds of things.
I hear you.
Okay.
No, I totally hear you. In fact, can we go back a few slides? Keep going. Here we go. So here we have not the CASP test. This is longitudinal data, which is what we were just talking about. And yet our lowest scores are English learners in this one. And this is again, something that we have to corroborate with the other data. And then again here, where you have Latinos and Pacific Islanders at the lower ends. And so there is multiple measures that are saying to us, we have to do a better job when it comes to Latino students and it comes to English learners. And so, and this is not just true of this district. I mean, let's just be real. This is a common problem across California. And again, this is nothing new that we haven't seen over and over and over and over again. And I'm sorry for the students to hear this, but we've seen this data every time I've been up here, and you see very similar things. I was trying to point out some exceptions to what we were doing, which was great. And some of the positives that was like, wow, and you did point that out. And I'm really happy to see that. But there are some still trends that are occurring, and we need to understand the why and how and what changes can we make. I totally agree with Superintendent Booker. CASP test is kind of not a great norm test that to look at, because for all the problems that we were talking about, especially for high school. I mean, it's probably more valid for elementary and middle school because they take it very seriously. And it's like, oh my God, we got to do well. And that's what they do. I didn't say that.
We give snacks. We give snacks as well.
I didn't say that, but so it is something that I think we need to concern ourselves with. And, and part of our breakfast was to talk about disrupting that and talking about changing that. So I think we're on the right track. I think it's good to point it out. I think we still have to point it out. It still has to be pointed out each time. So with that, I'm going to close out, but did you have something to say or you were good? Okay.
Did you?
Yeah, Trustee Jacobson.
Just real quick, going back to the chronic absenteeism, what have you found in terms of, do you know what are the biggest contributors to the absenteeism?
I mean, I know you're going to have a presentation from Mr. Scatena, probably not too far out in terms of absenteeism, but in general, there's a lot of factors, home life sort of issues, challenges. We've had a lot of students challenged by kind of coming to school regularly, getting out of bed, like some really kind of basic things that I think students, and they struggle with mental health issues and all kinds of things that are connected to that. There's also work in some instances for some students. So we've got, some of the chronic absenteeism is sort of predictable based on other demographic markers, right? Our low income students tend to be the ones who are more chronically absent because their lives are more distressed in some way. So I think, and I think they've also got assets that we have to also lean in on, right? Those students often, despite some of those challenges, come to school regularly. And so I don't want to cast this purely as like a deficit model conversation, but I do think those are some of the reasons that our chronically absent students are not coming. And some of the chronically absent students cut across demographic lines as well. This is not just sort of a low income student thing. So,
yeah, for sure. Yeah. If that is by far the largest contributor to student success,
it really is.
That's where we need to find out and put resources towards, because that's where we'll see the biggest yield.
Yeah. But again, I think the solution is broad ended. It could be engagement.
That's why I was curious.
But I think you're hitting it on the head. It's like absenteeism is the issue. How do you solve it? But there's no one right answer. And as long as we realize that, that's where we have to start approaching it from. It's like, why, because you're, like you said, there's not to make it just a deficit model, but also an interest model, a preference model, how to attract versus just kind of
pull, not just
drag. Yeah, and drag.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that's key.
Can we create some kind of incentives?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, I think we're good. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This was great.
Okay, I think we are moving on. There's nothing into construction. We are going to turn it over to Dr. Black for the division of the consent agenda for human resources personnel.
Okay, thank you. We have three items on personnel consent, personnel actions, the adult school transfers, and the agreement with the Youth Leadership Institute.
Which is coming up in October, right?
This is for the service, actually. This is the service that they provide for alternative to suspension.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
I move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Trustee Jacobson, seconded by Trustee Griffin. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Now we're going to move into Division of Human Resources again, just different items.
Yes, different items. And we have one resignation I'd like to recognize. That's Janine Malatesta, English teacher at Mills High School. is resigning after 21 years in the district, effective tomorrow. And she's going to be the new principal of Lomita Park in Millbrae.
In Millbrae.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Congratulations to her. All right. Motion in a second.
I move to approve.
Okay. Motion made by trustee Jacobson.
I'll second that.
Second by trustee Chavez. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing no. Motion carried 5-0 or 4-0. Okay, moving on to public hearing.
Public hearing for the adult school agreement, the AFT agreement, if you don't mind.
This one says public hearing for AB 1200.
Oh, AB 1200 is the form that we send to the county related to the agreement with the adult school teachers.
Okay, all right. So we're going to go into public hearing. So we close the board meeting. I am now opening a public hearing. Anyone wish to speak? Anyone online?
No, President Land.
Okay, anyone in the audience? All right, seeing none, we're going to close the meeting. We're going to reopen our board meeting, and now we're going to move on.
Yeah, the next item is now the approval of the agreement with the AFT or adult school teachers and the salary schedule. The agreement has many things, but mostly we redesigned the first week of the semester, added some professional development and teacher preparation time, did a schedule for night supervision, and created an agreement with the union for onboarding new employees.
Okay. Entertaining a
I
motion.
make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve by trustee Chavez. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Jacobson. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Hearing none, motion carried 4-0. Okay, approval of the updated miscellaneous salary schedule.
The revisions to the miscellaneous salary schedule are from the AFT agreement, and there's a few figures there related to the adult school teacher salaries and substitutes.
Okay, any questions? Entertaining a motion.
I move to approve.
Motion made by trustee Jacobson. Second by trustee Griffin. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried 4-0. Approval of the instructional lead bridge position.
Yeah, so we're continue. What's that?
Didn't we do this already?
I think that was for the student leadership. This is for the teachers.
Okay.
So we're continually trying to improve the bridge program as it grows. And part of that is department chairs. Part of every school have department chairs, but bridge is kind of unique in that it has many different departments, but one teacher in each. So instead of having department chairs in each of those subjects, we're going to have one leadership teacher that would help director or principal Showman with the professional development, other teacher leadership activities.
Entertaining a motion by anybody?
So move.
Okay, motion made by trustee Griffin, second.
I second.
Second by trustee Chavez. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried 4-0. Approval of, I don't know what this is. CalOps.
CalOps is a like a job board that we're going to use. It's for public agencies. It's something we haven't used before. Some public agencies are finding success attracting qualified and diverse individuals. So we think that we'd like to add that to our repertoire of advertising.
Can you send me the link?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Is there a motion?
Move
No,
adoption.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Second by trustee Jacobson. So trustee Griffin made the motion, seconded by trustee Jacobson. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Hearing none. No, I'm not in competition. I just need an immersion teacher. All right. I'm not joking. All right, moving on. Division of Student Services, none. Division of Instructional Services, Dr. Kemke.
So we are opening up a public hearing to attest that we have sufficient instructional materials for all students. So this is our
Is the Williams?
This is our annual public hearing for the Williams
Williams
Act
Act,
around
okay.
instructional materials. So
All right. So I'm closing the board meeting. I'm opening the public hearing. Open public hearing for anyone who wishes to speak regarding the adoption of resolution and certification of textbooks and instructional materials.
There's
Anyone?
none.
There's none online. Anyone in the audience? Anyone on the board? Okay, Williams Act. This is about textbooks and all the things that we were just talking about with the
I
other.
know, I was going to say, are we sure that we have that textbook? With
Yeah.
the Harvey milk in it?
I don't know, right? Okay. Did I close I'm closing the public hearing. I'm reopening the board meeting, and now we are moving on to the adoption. Yes,
So this is we're seeking adoption and approval of the resolution for the certification of textbooks. So you see the list there.
Right.
And the different funds that were used to purchase the textbooks.
and that we have sufficient amount.
And that
for
we
all
have
students.
sufficient amounts for all of our
It's just
students.
the Williams Act.
Yes.
In motion? Question? No?
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Motion made by trustee Chavez, seconded by? Seconded by trustee Griffin. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Hearing none. Ooh, in this one, the students can vote. So I hate to ask this, but students, you were supposed to vote first. So how do you vote?
Aye.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Unanimous. Thank you. All right. Moving on to information only on the Division of Business Services. Associate Superintendent Yancy Hawkins. It's all you.
Thank you so much. All right. I believe Chris Hyatt from Kegent will be joining. Oh, there she is. Hi, Chris.
Hello.
So Measure L is the district's $385 million general obligation bond approved in March of 2020 by our voters. Thank you so much, voters, for the continued support of our district and the facilities. As you go around the district, you can see some of our wonderful facilities that this district has. It's pretty amazing. So we're at the time where, the 385 million Measure L was projected to be issued in 4 equal installments over the course of the bond. In 2020, the board approved the issuance of Series A, and in 2021, the board approved the issuance of Series B. Now, Kegent is here, our financial advisor, to give us an update on the Measure L Series C issuance, and then just a little bit of information around some refinancing options that we may look into in the future. So with that, I will turn it over to Chris. Chris, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Yancy. I'm happy to be here tonight to talk about potential Measure L bonds, as well as a potential bond refinancing. So with that, I'll get started. As Yancy mentioned, the district voters approved Measure L in 2020 for $385 million at a tax rate of $15.55 per 100,000 of assessed valuation. So far, we've sold 2 series of bonds, Series A and B, in June 2020 and March of 2021 for $96.25 million each, which leaves $192.5 million left in unsold bond authorization. I'm here tonight to talk about the next series of bonds, Series C, which we currently have slated for November issuance in 2023 for another $96.25 million. Before we get into the details on Series C, I wanted to give you an update on interest rates. I think we all know that interest rates have risen pretty dramatically over the last year and a half after experiencing all-time lows during COVID in 2020 and 2021. The chart on the left here shows general obligation bond rates going back to 1963, so a 60-year history. And in the right-hand side, we have highlighted a 3-year history. So from a historical perspective, wanted to point out that rates are still fairly low from a historical standpoint, but we've definitely seen huge increases over the last year and a half, as shown on the right-hand side. And especially wanted to point out that over the last 2 weeks, rates have risen dramatically yet again. So this chart, should be updated a little bit to show that increase. We now are hitting 16-year highs on the 10-year Treasury. And the Fed has indicated that there's likely going to be an additional rate hike, probably in December of this year, and rates will remain high, likely through the end of 2024. So we'll keep that in mind as we continue issuing the Measure L bonds and plan the remainder of the Measure L authorization. On page 4, I wanted to give you an update on your assessed valuation. As you know, your tax base and taxes levied against it are the source of repayment for your Measure L bonds. So it's very important that we keep a close eye on your AV growth. This last year for 23-24, we experienced 6.78% growth, which is fantastic. You hit an all-time high for the district, $104 billion in assessed valuation. With that, your long-term averages are continue to be high. You'll look at your 40-year average at nearly 6%. Of course, we are very conservative to that as we plan the bond program moving forward. And we also keep an eye on the AV tracker that San Mateo County posts online, which shows the AV growth on a rolling basis. And I believe we're up to 2.9% as of today for the 24-25 fiscal year. So I wanted to give you a snapshot of what Measure L looked like when it was originally planned and when we first started planning the Series A issuance. So Measure L was originally planned to be 4 series of bonds issued every 2 to 3 years or so. We have that issuance schedule on the right-hand side. We had also planned to increase taxes slowly to provide some relief for your taxpayers during the early COVID years. Interest rates were assumed to be 5 to 6.5%, and assessed valuation growth was expected to stall temporarily due to COVID and then back up to a 4.5% annual growth. On the right-hand side, with all of those assumptions, the total estimated cost for Measure L was about $820 million. And you can see that the final issuance was planned for 2028. And on the bottom right-hand side, we have projected tax rates that showed our estimated final repayment in 2051. So now on the next slide, this is the current snapshot of Measure L. And of course, we have great news to report to you on the progress so far. So right now we are in a great spot because interest rates have been lower than we had anticipated when Measure L was planned. So Series A and B came in the 2% range. This upcoming Series C will likely be around the 4% range. Series D, we're still projecting to be higher. And your assessed valuation growth has been extremely strong, so significantly higher than the rates we had assumed. All of that allows us to issue bonds on a faster timeline and at a lower cost to your taxpayers. So I'll point out that estimated debt service schedule is now at $580 million versus I believe it was $820 on the prior slide. And the total repayment, the final year of tax was expected to be 2051, and you can see it's significantly shorter than that now. So we're in a very, very good spot with Measure L. So in total savings to date, just based on Series A and B, we're at savings of about $112 million on those 2 series alone. And if the projections hold true, including Series C and D, we would be at $240 million less than Measure L was originally estimated to cost for your taxpayers. And again, we're also planning to get all of the bond proceeds faster than the original Measure L plan. So 2025 instead of 2028, which is fantastic. One other idea we wanted to present to the board tonight is a bond tender and refinancing of your 2017 and 2019 taxable refunding bonds. A tender is a type of refinancing where investors are willingly giving up their bond holdings for a premium, and it would allow you to convert your taxable bonds to tax-exempt bonds. However, tenders are not guaranteed success. We've actually only seen 2 successful tender refinancings in the state of California for school districts with San Diego Unified and West Contra Costa. But we definitely felt that we owe it to your taxpayers to explore every possible refinancing opportunity. So that's why we were looking at this. On the next slide, we have a quick snapshot of what the savings could have looked like. Unfortunately, these numbers are as of 2 weeks ago. I don't want to focus too much on them given the increase in interest rates. But your underwriter has started conversations with some of the bondholders to see if they'd be willing to give up their prior bonds. Those conversations are ongoing, but so far it's not looking particularly positive. But we want to continue the conversation and see if there is an opportunity to save your taxpayers money. So we plan to have an update for you at the next board meeting. In terms of next steps, well, we're here tonight to talk about these two financings, and we're planning to come back to the board on October 12th to authorize the potential Series C issuance and the refinancing if it makes sense. So we will have an update for you at that point. From there, we will have a rating call with Moody's to update your district credit rating and plan to get the bonds sold in late October or early November, depending on the market at the time. So you would receive funds by probably late November or early December. Are there any questions?
Questions, anyone? Bob, go ahead.
I have a question for Yancey. Do we have programmed construction to use up this 96 million?
Yes, we do. There are regulations when you issue bonds around the IRS to allow those bonds to be tax exempt. The interest on those bonds to be tax exempt, and we meet those requirements. One important note that Chris noted, but I want to jump a little bit on, is being able to get those funds earlier than originally projected due to the lower interest rate environment and our AV growth ahead of our conservative assumptions. That's allowed us to reduce the amount of escalation in construction. As you know, I noted to the board, we've been seeing some pretty significant or very significant escalations in the construction market that meet or exceed regular inflation. And so by being able to get this money earlier, we've been able to do many of the projects without that escalation involved. So just the difference between 2025 and 2028, could save us 10 to 15% or more in terms of escalation on those projects. And that's one of the reasons the overall budget in Measure L does look very strong right now, because we have avoided some of that escalation.
Do we have the ability or plans or capacity to possibly we don't have to issue these in 4 equal tranches. We could do it, we could take some more if we could manage it and had capacity and had plans and all of that. Are we tapped out at 96 pretty much?
We're not, well,
I mean, for this,
believe,
the
yeah,
current.
for this, I think with the projects in the hopper right now, we have one more summer of individualized projects, of major individualized projects that include the district-wide solar, that include the district-wide fire alarm projects, and the district-wide HVAC control, and a few other projects, along with the major gym projects at San Mateo and Burlingame. The next main phase we move on to is classroom refresh across all sites. So a refresh in basically all the classrooms district-wide, as well as IT upgrades. So really improving the fiber into our sites. And I think those will be a little bit longer discussions of exactly what they will look like. So I think this 96, while Trustee Griffin, I would love to accelerate some of those. I think the planning for that, in order to ensure we do those projects right, because that's going to be across all sites. I'm comfortable that this is about the amount that we can go out for now, and really meet those requirements of the IRS in terms of spending.
Okay, thank you. The other question I have, and I think this is for Chris Hyatt. Thank you for your presentation. You look at the tender analysis, you need a certain critical mass of these people to submit because of the transaction cost. And you've kind of done some numbers there of 100% and 30%, and you've done your 2% and 4%. Is that pretty much where the market is these days, or would you? Because I mean, and when your premium goes up, the net savings also is declining. And how do we get these 2% and 4%?
Yes, those are around the levels that the other 2 school districts that successfully completed tenders, those are the levels that they were at. So tenders are a negotiation with your existing bondholders. So those would be the numbers that the underwriter would be negotiating with. Some investors may come back and say, absolutely not, I want 8%, or I'm not interested, in which case, if it's not economical for your taxpayers, we wouldn't move forward. So this is the levels that the underwriter was planning to start with. But as I mentioned, some of those conversations have not been positive so far. Certain bondholders are not interested at this point, especially with the rise in interest rates. So what we're hoping is that we can continue the conversations over the next 2 weeks. And if it doesn't look like there's a possibility to move forward on this and there's not sufficient savings, then we won't bring it back to the board. But we always want to pursue every possible refinancing opportunity for the benefit of your taxpayers, which is why we're looking into it at this point.
Is there, I mean, under the 4% tender, we still we had 100%, and I guess these are all the large institutional investors.
Most of them, yes.
Yeah, that we can still save $9 million. I mean, I'd love to be able to save 9 million. Even I'd love to be able to save 2.6, but I'm not sure the transaction cost would support it. Or is that already factored in there on the net present savings?
Yes, the costs are already included in the figures on your summary sheet. The problem is the critical mass that you mentioned, where we are showing 100% success and 30% success. And so far, it's looking like it would be below even the 30% level of participation. It's also hard to find all of the bondholders. Not all of the information is public. So if if those investors have resold their bonds in the secondary market, it's often hard to find some of the smaller bondholders. So if some of the larger bondholders pass, then we may not reach that critical mass level to pursue the tender.
Okay.
That's a lot more complex than I thought, to be honest with you. Glad I'm not in finance. I do want to go kind of circle back to what Bob was talking about. What is the reason why we wouldn't want to go out for a larger amount now? I mean, yes, you did equal amounts, but what if we skewed it this next time?
So
is there any logic to do that? Is what
no,
I'm asking.
there's a lot of logic
and that could be Chris or Yancey. I'm putting it to both of you.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of logic to it. But Trustee Griffin did note, we have a certain capacity to do quality projects, within the department and within the district. This takes a lot of work from our sites. Even right now, we're looking at, where we're going to host, different programs for summer, and
gyms and,
and gyms
at middle schools, you might have to use. Yeah, I heard.
Exactly. So there's a capacity within the building department, within our instructional staff that we're pulling away from, their regular duties. As anytime you've done construction, there's a significant amount. And
is there a legal restriction? So I guess I'm trying to get to is there a legal restriction of being able to hold the money?
Yes.
Yes.
So the IRS,
that's what I'm asking.
The IRS has certain rules. There's two separate, and our bond counsel could say it better than I can, but there's two separate tests that you can use in terms of the use of those funds. There's 1, 3, and 5 year. You have to use a certain percentage of the bond fund. You have to be able to say that you can use them within that period in order to keep it as a tax exempt investment, lowering that interest rate. At this point, I don't necessarily believe that we could make that statement that would be appropriate to the IRS.
Okay.
So I think we're in.
That answers my question.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Initially, we were projected to issue Series C in 2025. So ultimately, we've already moved.
We're just moving the
about
schedule
2
ahead.
years.
Okay.
Correct. And so I would love to, and I would love to avoid more escalation on these projects.
Right.
But ultimately, for the district, for the department, and to ensure that we really have quality projects, I think this is about as quickly as we can go.
It's a balanced approach.
It's about, yeah.
Get it. Chris, thank you very much for the presentation. Appreciate it. We missed Chet and Tony. I just tell you that right now, but you did a great job. All right. This is information only.
This is information only. We're projected to bring back on October 12th, the legal, the resolutions and the formal go, no go on Series C at that point. And then if there is any changes to the tender offer, if we get, we hear really positive information, we'll bring that back.
Okay.
But I do want to give,
No, go ahead.
I do want to give a lot of credit. While this tender offer, may not work, this board and the previous boards, as well as my predecessor, have been incredibly diligent about refinancing debt and ensuring the most savings to the taxpayer. It's a lot of work to do that. And this board has always pushed that, and to say, we're a AAA rated district. We have low rates, but that doesn't mean we don't need to do everything we can to lower them even more. And so I think that, like I said, it deserves a lot of credit.
As a taxpayer, I'm grateful. Completely. Okay, Bob.
Yeah, I hate to ask this question at all. What impact is a debt ceiling, government shutdown, rates, whatever going to have on the bond market and on our ability to to get people to tender their bonds?
So I think potentially might have more impact to the Series C issuance actually than the tender offer.
Well, just
any
impact.
uncertainty
Yeah.
in the markets can spook the markets. So we'll be watching that very closely to see what impacts that has. We don't like the market doesn't like insecurity.
Nobody likes.
I mean, it doesn't like
Instability,
instability.
I was going to say
uncertainty.
Chris,
Thank you.
could you weigh in on that a little bit?
Yes, I agree with everything Yancey said, that uncertainty can lead to higher interest rates. So we will certainly be monitoring that closely. And I'd also add that the government shutdown would not prohibit you from selling bonds. So we could continue on the same timeline. You could get your proceeds. It's a question of what impact does it have on your interest rates?
Right.
I mean, that's the pricing. I mean, it's not, they're a separate group with a whole set of separate problems, but still the bond market will really get impacted significantly. But anyway.
And I would note that, we talked internally about what the best time to bring these bonds forward. And while, we're not at the lows of the low where we were at 2.1% in 2021, we're still under 4% as a market, which historically is still very good. And the 10-year treasury isn't looking like it's going to really go down potentially until the end of 2024. And so while we do have a little bit of flexibility, if we want to get those projects next summer, if we want to pay for all the gyms that we've already started construction on and the other projects, we will need that money for next summer. And so our thought was, to move forward now while we still are in a relatively good market. But if we see big jumps in the market, in the next few weeks, obviously we may have to reassess where we are, but it would take, I think, a pretty big jump for us to not
really
recommend moving forward.
Well, one of the things that it disturbs me deeply is the fact that the solution is only, I guess, a continuing resolution through November 17th. And these bonds probably wouldn't have been issued by November 17th, or maybe they would have. So, I mean, they're only kicking a can down the road to keep it in front of us. And like so many agencies, and they don't have a long-term solution to it.
They do not seem to at this point.
The other consideration is that all signs are pointing to a rate increase in December from the Fed. So this timeline puts us ahead of that, as long as, government shutdown may impact rates, but that Fed increase will definitely increase rates. So we'll be monitoring both of those as considerations as to the timing of this sale.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a quick question for Yancey. So one of the documents that you reviewed last night with the Citizens Oversight Committee for Measure L has about 24 projects, which amazing. All the projects are going great. We have a great team. I wanted to ask, would the delay of the issuance of the next series, would that delay any of the projects on this list? I know you just mentioned the gyms, but
we probably have enough money if we move some things around until next summer. But at that point, we would need to take different measures because as of right now, the board has approved, in addition, past the Series B amounts. So we've moved forward with that with the assumption that we would be doing this Series C issuance sometime in the next few months.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yancey, thank you. Chris, thank you so much. Keegan, we appreciate your working with us, and the presentation was awesome. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. We're going to talk about board operations, approval of the response.
Yes, so we received this San Mateo County Civil Grand Jury Report entitled Education is Everyone's Business. School business partnerships make an impact in county's high schools. We worked with county council on our response to this report. We provided a background for the board and the public. There were certain findings in this report. Mostly we agreed with all of the findings. The only times we said, while we agree with them, we don't really have a comment, is because we didn't do the actual research and data. And so we're assuming the research and data is correct, but we note that throughout our response in the report. They gave us a very short timeline to get this done, but we reached out and that's fine. So tonight we're asking that the board approves our response to the Honorable Judge Lee.
Thank you. Any questions? Comment?
Is there by law a period they have? Is there by law a period of time they have to allow for people to respond and not willy-nilly, like you got the weekend to get your response back, get your homework done?
I'm sure there is, in the sense of this was forwarded, first of all, to the County Office of Education, and then the county forwarded it to us. The county apologized in their delay to us.
There you go. And now you understand.
Yeah, that's right. And, we had some meeting date changes of our own in the sense of board meetings.
Right.
So, it's
So
all good,
hence,
though.
I
It's
will
all good.
I'll withdraw my question.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, but again, I can make a comment about grand jury reports and I won't. Any other comments? I know I'm not saying a darn thing. All right. Any other comments?
I'll move approval, adoption.
All right. Motion made.
I'll second that.
Second. So motion made by trustee Griffin, seconded by trustee Chavez. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Thank you. All right. Next is approval of specific board policies. Isn't this just going to go to consent next time?
Yep.
Okay. So if there's any,
It's all
the
statutory.
usual stuff. So let's just put it on consent for next time. Do you have a question? No, they didn't have a questions. Okay. All right. So that's it. All right. We'll put it on consent for next agenda item. Okay. All right. Future board agenda items. Any requests?
That topic that Brian was talking about, with the
Chronic absenteeism?
No,
or-
the support resources we have for like things beyond counseling.
Oh, okay.
If there's enough to make
Superintendent Booker. Yeah. I also, just going with what Superintendent Booker is talking about with resources in high schools and differences and making some shifts at some point in time. Obviously, we're going to do budget sessions first, and then we can build, because that part of the conversation should be part of that. Because we should look at shifts in enrollment and other things and projections. How we look at projections and stuff should be part of that too. Anything else? Okay, with that, we are done and it's only 9:04. Meeting adjourned.